So many different levels of view there.
Okay. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? I guess everyone online can hear me as well. Welcome to your July 25th ROSC meeting. If you want to go ahead and click to the next slide, we'll introduce our leaders, which I think most of you have all been here before. We have a couple newcomers, so I will go ahead and introduce Kent Taro, who is our Chief Executive Officer. Our project director is Becky Hatley. She is actually joining us online today. Brian Polo, who is actually in the back. He's the one of the ROSC coordinators, and myself, who is the other ROSC coordinator. Next slide. So this is our agenda for the meeting. We're going to go ahead and start with welcome announcements and introductions. I'm going to go ahead and do some introductions. I kind of explained to the people that are present. If you have been here before, we're just going to limit introductions to people that have not been here before. So is there anyone online that has not been here before that would like to introduce themselves?
Hello, I'd like to introduce myself.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Melissa Monty. I'm with the Aviary Recovery Center. We specialize in substance abuse treatment and recovery. We have 12 medical detox beds, 43 residential, and we also have a men's sober living house capacity for 14, I believe. We're located in Eola, Missouri. Sounds really far, but picture Troy, Missouri, basically. We're right next to that. And we'd love to be a resource for everyone.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Anyone else? Okay, if there's no one else online, I will go ahead and turn it over to a couple new members here in person. Julie, do you want to start off?
Sure.
I'm sorry, yes. All right, go ahead.
I was like, I didn't know if you're talking.
Yes.
Julie Coleman, I work for Chestnut Health Systems. I now work with the statewide ROSC Region Board, which this is covered by, so I'm happy to be here. Grace is doing a great job.
Julie is our new TA for our ROSC here, so we're glad to have her. Jamil?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamil Steele. I am the Director of Adult Education and Literacy at Lincoln Land Community College. I'm here as an educational partner. We're looking at responsibly being a resource to for your clients to get access to GED classes as well as career preparation classes. Also, I have a secondary interest in doing some research now to try to create what we call a recovery specialist pathway for some of our students who are completing their GED but want to give back through working with others through the recovery process.
Okay, thank you, Jamil. Paula?
I am Paula White. I am the program director for the Learning Express Birth to Home Visiting Program for Regional Office of Education number 3. We're here today as a resource if you're working with any families who have young children who want to be pregnant or have a child up to the age of 3. We do weekly home visits. We do parenting. We kind of help. We set goals with the family and kind of try to get them on the right path for school.
Caroline. I'm Caroline Kimbrough. I'm also with the Learning Express program. I am recruitment and enrollment specialist, so I'm just kind of familiar face to get your referrals for our program, and then I'll be the first one in the home to do the enrollment process. And we just like to be a good source of, like, we can refer our families to your agencies as well, so we want to be able to give out those resources.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'm glad you're here with us today. So the next matter of business and housekeeping is, I think everyone got the minutes sent to them in the email. And if anyone had a chance to review those, I just need to have a motion to approve those and then we can approve them. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and we will motion for those to be approved. Or all in favor, I guess. Okay, and we'll motion for those to be approved. Thank you. Continuing on, we have our announcements. If you want to go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I know they're kind of hard to read on the printouts that I did. So we have the Metro East Narcotics Anonymous Up the Creek Float Trip from July 29th to the 3rd. We have the Back to School Bash, which is August 6th from 9 to 1 at the Litchfield Community Center. We do have a Phoenix Center focus group on August 8th. And it is at night. It's from 6:30 to question mark, I guess, at Oakland Avenue, Oakland and Carlinville. We do have the overdose awareness event happening at the Lincoln Plaza. I believe Crossover Ministries is handling that. The time is to be determined still.
12 to 8.
Oh, so they did. Okay. She was still unsure. So 12 to 8 for that. We do have the meetings listed there as well. I'm not going to go through all of them for time wise. And we did include some webinars in your email as well. If you guys want to check those out, if you have any questions, you could ask Brian or I. And then Lincoln Land is going to be hosting a free GED class at different locations, being Hillsborough and Litchfield, starting August 22nd. Next slide, please. Very excited about this. We have now started our ROSC Facebook page. So if everyone could like and comment and share, that would be great. We are going to utilize this. I think that this is not going to slide anymore. We're going to utilize this to promote local events and community services. Anything recovery focused, we will be able to share, and you guys could utilize it as a resource as well. So next slide. We're also very excited about this. We have finally decided on a logo, but we wanted to bring it to you guys for a vote. So a little bit of history of what we decided on. So we came up with this logo, being that we always wanted ROSC to stand for something. We wanted it to mean something to the community and something about what we're doing. So when we talk about ROSC, we talk about building an infrastructure, and we always talk about a hub and spoke model, and we always talk about inner working gears. So this symbol to us means that all of that, it's a circle, it's an infrastructure, it's got the gear model and the infrastructure with the dots around it. So we wanted to put it to you guys for a vote. Either show of hands or in chat, I guess, number 1 or number 2. We kept with the purple because purple and teal are both recovery focused. And I'm sorry, but they are kind of darker than what they are normally. The number 1 is more of a darker, deeper purple with a lighter teal. But the other one is a darker or a lighter purple with a darker teal. So we just kind of wanted your input on what you guys would like or prefer, and we can just do it with a show of hands for those in person. So for number 1, can we vote? Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3. So about 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, and number 2. So we got 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 in person for that one. And then we'll have to tally the online ones and figure out which one we decided on. Right. I know, right? If you want to go to the next slide. We do have our safe passage up and running. We still have 29 access points currently. We are always and actively pursuing more. So if there's anyone that needs to be one, or if you guys want us to reach out to one, I know Lindsay and Elise do that. So just hit us up with who that might be, and they can approach them about becoming an access point. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So this is our safe passage slide to where we kind of update you guys about how safe passage is doing in our communities. So in June, they provided safe passage to 18 people in Macoupin and Montgomery counties, and 72% of those people have begun treatment. A new slide that we have put into our slideshow is a clinic update. If you want to go to the next slide. So this kind of shows us on the clinic aspect of both of our clinics. We have one in Litchfield and one in Hillsborough. I'm sorry, Gillespie. So new clients, St. Francis Way served in the month of June was 6. We have a total of 130 clients that we served. We had 1 inpatient referral and we had 3 outpatient referrals. Health and wellness served 110 people. I'm sorry, our new client served was 10 people. Total clients served was 112 people, and inpatient referral, we had 0, but we did have 8 outpatient referrals. So both of those clinics are doing great, and they're just striving through all of our clients and providing services as they should. I know they're working their butts off and they need the credit for it. Next slide. So this is our outreach and awareness. So I did put the SIU graduation for our CRSSs. Crossover had what, three total graduates. Erica's here with us in person today. She was one of them. So I think she deserves a round of applause. The picture in the middle is we actually went to a SIMS workshop in Montgomery County to where we helped with action planning and county mapping. So that there's going to be a report coming out about that in the near future. So I'm excited to see that and what we all collaborated on to make this happen for Montgomery County. So next up, we're going to have Carissa come up and do her report on sustainability.
What the Microsoft Word PowerPoint program will do now. So I'm Carissa. I've been working with Macoupin County since about 2020. And I'm here to talk about sustainability. So I think everybody sees a little, actually, I'm gonna grab one so I can kind of pull it out. But essentially, everyone has gotten one of these. We either emailed it to you, sorry. We either emailed it to you or or it's sitting here, or possibly we could put it in the chat if people need to access it relatively quickly. But essentially we are required as part of some of the federal funding we have, but also later via the ROSC to do some sustainability planning. And so right now we're going to do a little bit of that. Next slide, please. So just to put everything into context, essentially around 2017, Montgomery County Public Health Department became aware of significant issues with substance use in the two-county region. Especially at that time, there was Montgomery County had some of the highest rates of overdoses. So essentially, one of the things they did was they built a small group of people. They called this a consortium, and this consortium worked together to apply for some grant funding. At that time, the federal government had what were called RCORP grants. These were special grants to respond to opioid use in rural communities. And the grant helped them to spend a year doing some planning and needs assessments. So basically 2018 to 2019, they put together a plan. They did significant needs assessment. They went around, did a lot of interviews, talked to everybody to figure out what are the gaps, what are the needs, how are we going to pull together some services that are actually going to be effective here. And so they came up with some great ideas and they went back to the federal government. Federal government said, yeah, these are great ideas. And they got funded. And so they got funded between the years 2020 and 2023. And you see 2023 is coming pretty soon. So they want us to be working with consortium members, but as we know, our consortium in that's kind of covering it, but that little green, that little green circle there that's covered by all the people, that is when the ROSC was formed. So that was in 2021. You can just press the little, yeah. So as we see, and so the consortium members all ended up being part of the ROSC. And so we're including you in this discussion as well. Next slide, please. So this is why maybe I'm a little taller. So a sustainability plan is basically a roadmap. It essentially helps us achieve long-term goals and document strategies to continue program activities and partnerships. So essentially, we're doing this planning. So this isn't just a one and done thing. All this funding is essentially seed money for us to create programs that will stay in these areas for a long time. And so the federal funding that Macoupin County Public Health Department received essentially requires this sustainability plan, but the ROSC, state of Illinois and ROSC will also want some kind of sustainability planning to occur as well. And essentially, you know, we have, if you look at this, and I don't know how many people have had the opportunity to review this. I know it's very dense and you kind of read through it and it's a little boring, but essentially it's quite long. And we're basically clicking a lot of boxes for what the federal government wants from us. And some of these are what Macoupin County Public Health Department just will do on its own. So a lot of these items in here, it goes under 3 different sections: funding, relationships, and challenges. And essentially, some of those are specific to Macoupin County, like provision of medication-assisted treatment. That's one example of it. Next slide, please. But right now, what I'm going to go over with the group are basically some of the items that really involve the entire ROSC and the existing what had previously been the consortium. So essentially that includes underfunding 2 items. And I realize the 3rd item is relationships, and I'll go to that one next. So first one is identifying funding for aftercare, after-hours care, respite, recovery program, and prevention, and funding to sustain the existing prevention and recovering program that's there. So essentially what we're saying here is we're going to keep on looking for funding for many of the recovery programs we're doing. But this is also an opportunity. We'll have a little bit of time for everybody to give a little bit of feedback if there's additional things you want us to add to that funding section. Under relationships, the first one is, which needs to go in the next slide, but I screwed up, is a focus on continuing to build relationships with schools and school districts in order to do prevention programming. Oh, go back to relationships. We also have continued to use and develop a communications plan with the focus on marketing and community outreach. So again, we made this great communication plan for the ROSC, and part of the sustainability of this ROSC and all the things we're doing is that we just stick with what we have. Continue to expand the size and the diversity of the ROSC. Focus on engaging individuals with lived experience and providing opportunities to volunteer and be involved. Maintain and expand the existing Safe Passage No Wrong Door program. Organize community events focused on recovery, and when doing so, engage local media and continue to engage faith-based stakeholders. Okay, next slide. So the 3rd is the challenges. And so these are essentially ways that the ROSC itself can deal with any kind of challenges or issues or constraints they get from the system. We'll just make it that simple, the system. So one of them, of course, is a challenge for workforce. So that continues to be an issue, is having a trained workforce who knows how to treat and work with people with substance use issues so that they're getting the best services they can. And one of the way the ROSC does this, and they continue to do it, is by providing announcements and information about available training. It's nice being in this computer age that we have now, where a lot of times these webinars are free and essentially you just can register. And so every time we find out about one of those, we basically put it in a folder and we put it in our announcements, and then it gets sent out after the meeting. The other thing that this was to some degree recommended to us, but it also can be useful in terms of making sure that we are providing programs that we know are effective that are really going to help people. And also what this also implies is that we stop doing things that are ineffective and sometimes harmful. Of course, meeting monthly. The monthly meetings are huge and very important for any kind of challenges that come up. But also working with academic partners or other types of experts who can essentially help you with evaluation, tracking, and if you're also reviewing data, how you work together to get feedback and figure out how to, because the data will point out what's going wrong. And you will want to have some sort of feedback plan where everybody goes, well, this is why it's going wrong. No, this is why it's going on. And so everybody thinks together about solutions. So this is one of the things that we had also, it was basically in response to what the federal government wants, but also some of what we've been doing. And I think that's all we have. So now we just I'm just going to leave the floor open. If anybody has any responses, we'll be recording those in the minutes. And then any of those we'll revise the report according to those items. Also, please feel free to review this. We have to turn it in by August 17th, I believe, but we will take comments until the first week of August. So I think the first week of August ends around the 7th. And so if you looked it over, there's anything you feel, uncomfortable with, or you want to change, or you have some ideas, please let us know and we'll figure out how to incorporate it in a way that makes it work for everybody. Okay?
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Carissa. Again, your voice is important to us. You guys are part of the ROSC. So like she said, just let us know if you guys have any input that you'd like to add. You can email Brian or I, and we can put those along messages to Carissa, and we can get that form changed. Next up, we do have John Magnuson and his presentation of the Next Network. I know we had a little preview last month, but he's going to give us the full thing this time.
Just joking. I'm going to raise this up. I just want to take a few moments to tell you a little bit about me. I've worked with most of you in various capacities. I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. My dad was an angry alcoholic. So I grew up in a home where emotions were not safe, and that led me down a path to try to find love and belonging through all the wrong people and in all the wrong ways. My story changed because somebody cared enough to pour into me. I moved to Litchfield when I got married to my wonderful and amazing wife about 12 years ago. And as a transplant from St. Louis, the pace is very different, but I slowly realized that the problems are almost exactly the same as the larger city. About 5 years ago, after perpetually getting angry at my desk, reading emails about how everybody was doing everything wrong and nobody was engaging the community successfully or well, or how it should be done, I decided to get out from behind my desk and start intentionally not only engaging in the community, but building relationships. I've been a part of the RCO, the consortium, the ROSC from almost its very inception. And I've loved watching how this has just grown over and over again. Somewhere in that journey about 4 years ago, I decided to get sober. So I have lived experience and I understand part of that journey of that. In my 8 years here, I have noticed a problem. And most of you have noticed the problem in different capacities in different sectors in exactly the same way. That the problem is that most people that are leaving a facility, whether it's a rehabilitation facility, whether it's a government-funded facility with bars, or they're leaving a program, whether it's mental health or addiction. Most of the time, people leaving facilities or programs do not have access to a community that is willing to partner with them and advocate for them. Most of the time, whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, most of the people that are released back into the world go back to exactly the same communities and areas that they came from. And most of us know that that is mostly not always a healthy thing, especially if people are trying to change their story. They can't always change their story in the same place where they've created chapters of their story that they don't always want to read out loud. And as I was thinking through this story recently, a couple of other stories came to mind. I've been a pastor here for 8 years as well, so pardon me for a moment while I kind of pull some stories from Scripture that I think are aptly fit this moment. One of the stories that came to mind was a story that I find in the letter that James wrote, Jesus' brother. And if anything, James is kind of this way that says, you know, what you believe should impact what you do in this world. It's kind of the boots on the ground letter to say, here's what we should be doing. And after talking about wisdom and all these other things, he moves into the second chapter and he talks about, you know, you shouldn't have favoritism. And then there's this really powerful section in there where he challenges the entire church, these group of people that believe something, to say, hey, what you believe should result in you doing something about this. And he uses this example. Here's what he says. He says, what good is it if what you believe doesn't result in action? Suppose someone comes to you without clothes or daily food, and you say to him, go, I wish you well, be warm and well fed, but does nothing about the needs. What good is that? I mean, just a few words later, he would go on to say that that type of faith, that type of belief that doesn't result in action is actually unviable. It's dead. It doesn't produce anything, and it's not really faith at all. And I don't know about you, but most of the people that I've talked to that are trying to put their stories back together, that are trying to be successful in new chapters, they have so many people that tell them, go, I wish you well, be warm and well fed. They send out good vibes. They send text back that says, I pray for you. They send all these things, man, I'm really excited for you. I hope that it all works out. And unfortunately, some of us also know what it's like to reach the limitations of what our organization can do, right? Some of us know whether it's a geographical boundary, whether it's a financial boundary, whether it's a resource boundary, there are certain times in what we do in trying to help people put back together their story, where the only thing we are left with is go, I wish you well, because I am at the end of what I can do in this position. That's one of the most defeating feelings in the world, isn't it? It's one of the most heartbreaking things, knowing that you have reached the end of what you can do and you are saying, I wish you the best out there. I think this happens when people apply for jobs. Go, I wish you well. I think this is what happens when people apply for housing, right? That have felonies or that don't have certain credentials, or they got a history going on. They say, go, I wish you well, I hope you can make it. But then I was confronted with this other story. Most of you have probably heard this story. It's confronted with the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, I'm not going to read this story. I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes version of this. This person that is walking back from the temple, this area of belonging and accessing God, is robbed, and he's left on the street for dead. A priest walks by, goes on the other side. A Levite walks by, walks on the other side. And then something happens. A Samaritan comes by, and that's where the story changes. There's a few things I want to highlight in this story. The first thing is that the Samaritan actually sees the person that other people have walked by. It's not that they didn't see this person. It's just that they didn't make the connection between what they believe and what they actually did, right? This is the type of person that saw somebody on the side of the road and said, hey, I wish you well, be warm and well fed. Now, you and I know the power of what it means to be seen, right? To not feel invisible, to feel like you have worth and value and something to add. So this person has compassion on this random stranger on the side. And all of you are in this room because you see people. You see people that everybody else has kind of walked by. You see the person with the felony. You see the person with a mental health issue. You see the person with addiction. Most of you don't get paid and compensated for what you see. He has compassion. Something inside of him is moved. He says, I want to do something. And not only does he see a problem, he goes the next step. He actually gets off his donkey. He sees something and he gets off his fill in the blank. Okay. This is a powerful example. Somebody that has the power in that situation, right? Somebody that has the resources in that situation, somebody that has the means and the position, gets down off of his position, relinquishes his power to say, I'm in a higher position than you, and he gets off his donkey and he looks at this person's needs. He uses what he has and he helps this person. And by the way, how well do you think he could see the person's wounds from his donkey? He needed to get down and inspect them, right? He needed to see what is really going on. What's going on? What is your immediate need that you have? Sometimes we serve in places and with people that are just happy to stay on their donkey and throw a check off and hope it lands on the right spot to heal all the needs, right? By the way, anybody that wants to throw checks off a donkey, let me know. I will be right there to take them. He inspects his wounds, his immediate needs. He says, what do you need most right now? He didn't walk by and say, go, I wish you well. He didn't walk by and say, hey, get a job. He didn't walk by and say, you know, if you just quit wanting to do it. He looked at this and he bandaged them and he helped them and he did all of these things. Not only did he help his immediate needs, he got him a place to stay until he was healed, right? In this story, he actually picks him up, puts him in the position that he was once in, carries him to an inn, and he pays the innkeeper not only for the first night and the second night and the third night, but he tells him the story. He says, I'm going to go on a journey. And when I come back, any cost that has been incurred for this man getting to a place in his story where he can move to the next chapter, I will pay for it. A beautiful example of somebody seeing somebody, using their position and their resources to heal the immediate needs, but providing a system and a place where they can move successfully into the next chapter of their story. This sounds like a lot of people in this room. It sounds and looks like a lot of people that we know that aren't in this room, that are online, right? So we know what the problem is. So the question always is, well, where do we start? You are all here because you see people and have compassion. So my thought was this. Instead of just randomly using resources and energy driving around the streets of Litchfield or Hillsborough or Montgomery County or Macoupin County, looking for people on the side of the road, by the way, please keep doing that. I wondered what it would look like to start forming a relationship with Macoupin and Montgomery County drug courts. And the reason, I'm sorry, I went to the, where do we start? I need to talk to the solution. We know the problem, right? Sorry, I missed a slide. I just get excited and I forget where I go. So if the problem is that there's not a community, and there's people saying, go, I wish you warm and well fed, what would it look like to create a community, a network, for lack of a better term, of Samaritans in different sectors of our community that are willing to partner and advocate for people who are trying to put their stories back together?
I think that Logan just didn't like it. I think it was considered to be more of a mess than a help.
I just didn't know if it was like if someone had like special needs and like they could be out in the hallway.
I'm not aware. Now it's been dumped out because when I emptied the trash this morning, it was full of pasta. So
Haley,
yeah,
we can hear you. There you go.
Oh.
Carry on, John.
Okay. What would it look like to have a Samaritan that's a business owner that says, I see you, and I don't care what your wounds are, I don't care what the last chapter of your story is, you can find a place to make a living wage for you and your family here? What would it look like to have a Samaritan and the property owner in business, where we could say, hey, we're going to give you a year's rent, and we're going to create a filtering process. You can have access to your place anytime you want. We're going to have a community thing. This isn't just us saying, hey, here's an apartment for free for a year. This is us saying we have a community of people helping this person. What would it look like to have a Samaritan in that sector? What would it look like to partner with the Samaritans that are working in GED and job training centers, right? What would it look like to have partners in the ROE that see families in their biggest needs and that are pregnant or need resources there? What does it look like to have Samaritans in those areas? So we see the problem, we understand part of the solution, but the starting point I thought of tonight would be accessing and partnering with the Macoupin and Montgomery County drug courts. And part of the reason is this. Part of the reason is the volitional aspect of participating in those programs. Those are people that are saying, I want to work to help change my story. Those are rigorous programs. Those are long programs. Those are programs with accountability. Those are programs with structure. Those are programs with community. So what would it look like to just introduce ourselves to those programs and say, hey, listen, I've got a network of Samaritans that are ready to help people if they want to change their story. It's amazing to me that we've all known each other for relatively 18 months or around there, or we've known of each other for that period of time. Do you know that in 2 meetings today, I became aware of 4 different resources that I had no idea about that exist in this community? That's scary and amazing all at the same time. Wouldn't it be amazing to go to the drug courts and say, hey, here's this network of resources available at your fingertips? What would it look like for somebody to say, hey, I don't have a job, I don't have a place, to say, hey, guess what? I've got lots of things and we want to work with you and partner with you in this aspect. The initial conversations I've had in this area have been absolutely amazing. So there's a slide that I've shown. There it is right there. Imagine the participant having access not just to their former community, but to a brand new one. And not of people that are just saying, go, I wish you well and warm fed. But of people that had said, if you come to me, like some of the great partners at Atlas 46, he said, if you send somebody to me, I can find them a job, no questions asked. Perfect. Done. Isn't that powerful? What are the chances of that person being successful in changing their story versus the person who's just going back to their old community? I think we drastically increase the capability of stories changing, right? I was in this seminar once and he said, do you know that gangs are not about crime? Do you know what gangs are about? Community. A sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, a sense of, hey, we got you. Hey, we're in this together. We got your back. We got your front. We're going to do all these things together. Imagine a group of people that are for you and with you saying the exact same thing. So I thought of a few stages, and bear with me. This is really small on my paper, so I'm going to slightly turn. Please don't be offended. It's so small on your paper too. I just realized that. Some ideas I have for stage one. One of the things that I've been actively working for over the past 2 months is securing partnerships and commitments and developing relationships. I had a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce in Litchfield earlier today, and I'm scheduled for the next meeting of August 10th just to be there. And it's not to say, hey, if you're a good person, you allow people to work here. This is me just listening to say, what would it look like? And what is going to make this sellable for you? For me to come to say, hey, I would love to place somebody in a recovery and felony-friendly workplace. What would make that easier for you as a business owner? One of the other things that we need to do is research programs, because this is not the first program like this. This is not going to be the last program like this. There are plenty of other programs and ideas that are working. Places for People in St. Louis, if you've never heard about it, it is phenomenal and amazing. That has been existing for 50 plus years. And holy cow, if we can have a fraction of that, that would be great. All that to say, we still need to learn. We need to grow. We need to learn. Just like every other good idea, at some point, you're going to need funding, right? Funding helps things like make this fast track the 501c3 status of this. It would help us to be able to write checks that can secure opportunities for people, whether that's housing or different things that are happening like that. So that's one of the things I am constantly going to be working towards. Data, metrics, all of those things. Attend drug court sessions regularly, so I'm not a stranger. So I'm not just the guy to be like, hey, my name is John. I'm tall, skinny, and tattooed. Let me help you change your story. Thanks, bro. No thanks. Don't know who you are. Don't trust you. Never seen you before. Not going to happen. You can sell your Kool-Aid one door down, because I know somebody who will probably buy it. Okay. If nothing else, the presence of people in those meetings that say, I'm just here to listen and help if ever desired. My goal for 2022 is to help 2 people. I think that's manageable and sustainable. Next stage, obviously, is expanding, develop infrastructure, formalization. I already have my articles of incorporation, all this type of stuff, but again, just all that fun stuff. Expand the reach, secure more funding, begin discussion of staffings for participants, because my goal is, as we partner with like Jamil and the GED system and we build connections there, and then my wife's cousin actually teaches the GED classes here in Litchfield. That's a cool connection, right? So now I have an end. So here's what Jamil and I talked about, Jamil and I talked about earlier, is there's a difference between me saying, hey, go fill out the paperwork to join the GED program, to me saying, hey, this is my friend Alicia, and she's going to guide you in the process of getting your GED. And I can meet those 2 people, a soft or a warm handoff, if you will, right? Formalize and optimize workflows. Why? Because I don't know how this works. It's a PowerPoint. It's like 5 pieces of paper. It's a debit card with $100 in the bank account because I believed enough in it to put $100 of my own money in there, which is a lot for me. That's all this is right now. We need to learn. We need to grow. We need to be able to be willing to say, hey, this was chunky. Hey, this doesn't work. Hey, I need to apologize because the partnership did not work the way that I thought it should. What would it look like at stage 2 to widen the circle beyond just drug court, right? Let's say we have a good workflow. Let's say we have some success. Let's say we have some resources. Let's say we have increasing partnership organizations. Maybe now it's not just limited to drug court, but maybe we can start having conversations with probation. Maybe now we can start having conversations with people that are in safe passage or people that are exiting programs that are closer and not just going through drug court, right? Eventually, physical space and location, staff people, and what would it look like to just offer resources to the community as a whole? Say, listen, you don't have to have a drug felony to participate. If you need help getting a GED, if you need help with professional training, if you need help with your kids, if you need help and you need somebody to partner with you that is a recovery peer specialist, we have all of that right here for you. If you need help balancing your checkbook in the midst of all this inflation, I have somebody that can come on an 8-week cycle, every 6 week on a Thursday. There's a person who does banking that's volunteering their time that can help you look through your financials and help you budget your checkbook just to see what is possible in your future. All of those things are at our fingertips. The beautiful part about this, I think, is this. Number one, I'm not asking anybody to leave their sector, okay? I'm not asking the financial person to be a recovery peer specialist. I'm not asking the recovery peer specialist to be a childcare expert. What we are doing essentially is creating a central hub to allow people to walk in and partner them with the resource, or picture a wagon wheel, the spoke on the wheel, to send them through the right spoke to get connected to help them be able to be successful in the next chapter of their story. We know enough people. I think there's more than enough resources, right, with grants and all this other stuff available, which I have no idea how to do, but somebody here does. And I will give you my cell phone number, and I will buy you lunch, and I will listen to you. So that is my idea for the next network. It's possible. And by the way, you don't see it in your thing, but the E in the next network is red because I believe that every story is possible. It's possible for every story to change. And that's what we believe here. What are your questions that you would have? What are your suggestions? I know this is a lot. Yes, Ron Howard, who I need to take to lunch to get to know better about 988 and other things going on in Montgomery County Health Department.
This is the first time I've spoken here. I put together just a short resource list when I was doing training done. It's about 20 pages, and I know it's not complete. Is there a way I'm willing to email everything that I have to anyone here. I was wondering if there's any way we could all put that together.
Yeah, I know.
A major list of resources that we could go to, because I know there's stuff that you know that I know. Maybe something I know.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. There's an email.
Yeah, I have a list of some resources. We can all just start finding them, and Jen just started working on one as well.
Okay, I can email you what I've got.
Can we, once we have it, can we just create like a Google form link where it can be a live document where I'm not waiting on an email from you or you, but anybody at any time can add a resource, modify a resource, because everybody knows that it's great to know people, but when the position changes, I don't necessarily know that, right? So if we can create a live document that it's not dependent on me emailing Dave or getting it from Dave to email it to you, but this link that is constantly active that we can just add and modify, I think that would be a tremendous resource. Dave.
Well, I know that discussion, the resource discussion has come up many times. And I think that's definitely something that we can do. We can definitely put something together. I'm excited about this because of what we do at Hearts United. And we are that first step for a lot of folks that are coming out of rehab, coming out of incarceration, coming out of a dark time in their life, period. And so it's not necessarily has to come out of this institution, but it's just something where they're trying to change things. But like you said, when you first started this, we have limitations that we have to recognize. And so we can start out being a notary. I can help them get an ID, because coming out of incarceration, they get a little paper thing, the prison ID or whatever, and they don't have a regular ID. I help them get that. I help them get a change of clothes. But then what? Then it's like, okay, now we can plug you into the next resource, and that's the big thing. Is just let's plug you into the next network, and then boom, all of a sudden things open up for them, no matter where they're coming from. But now let's get them to the next step in their life.
Yeah. A couple of I like to dream out loud because it always helps, and it usually happens if you say it out loud sometimes. One of the things I envision is eventually expanding into some form of property ownership, okay? And it's not to be like, take over all the properties. The reality is this. I met with a woman the other day. I don't have a place to live. Got a felony, I'm on disability, and DCFS took away both my kids. Okay, imagine applying for housing on that. Lists are already long. Chances of you even getting a second look, much less a first look, very slim, right? What would it look like to have an apartment somewhere? Or we talk to the landlord, again, we say, hey, here's a year's rent. We develop that partnership, because again, a lot of this is just partnerships and community and knowing people, right? We're not just going to be random people that write a check and say, go, I wish you well. This is like, no, I want to advocate and partner with you throughout your journey to say, hey, we have 2 apartments in different areas, and maybe you need it for a month, and we can have you there for a month to get your story back together. Maybe a family of 3 needs it for 6 months, and we can have that availability option there, right? Different things like that, where you say, hey, maybe we develop a relationship with Macoupin and Montgomery County housing authorities, where we say, hey, we're not just a person, but we're an entity. Help us to maybe have a little bit of a fast track with this, right? Different things like that I see on the horizon. Transportation, not a big issue at all in this area. There's never been an issue with transportation whatsoever. What would it look like to eventually have something that isn't tied to a county, okay? That isn't tied to any form of federal grant, that is just tied to a couple of full-time employees, that has a bus route and targets specifically and only people who are in recovery or different things like that. That could be a game changer for so many people. Again, in Macoupin County Health Department, right? You guys have a 72-hour window, and it's because of your grant. And there's a points where you have to say, go, I wish you well, be warm and well fed. But if there's a standalone entity that can do all of these things and just act as a central hub and a network that eliminates some of those roadblocks, and it helps people move successfully into the next chapter of their story. I am out of time. I have 30 seconds left. I will be here. I would be happy to have conversations with you in any capacity.
Oh man, he's tall. Thank you, John. Like you said, if you have any questions, if anyone online has any questions and they don't know how to get a hold of John, Brian and I can facilitate that relationship as well. Just send it to us. We can connect you with John. Next up, we have our moment of wellness with Crystal. Crystal is a graduate student that we've had the pleasure of working with, and today is actually her last day. So we actually voluntold her to, that she has to do this moment of wellness. So everybody give it up for Crystal.
Jen, I think you say you're short, but I am very short, so I'm 5'1", and that's with shoes on. So hi, everyone. My name is Crystal. I'm an intern with Macoupin County Public Health through SLU with Carissa, kind of doing a couple of different projects with her. I came here I met the team in August of last year, but because of some school issues and credit stuff, started in January of this year, and have been kind of hanging out and getting to know the area, getting to know the rural landscape, and just developing my own interests as a growing professional. I did a graduate degree in social work, graduated in May, and I'm about to head back to Washington State, where I'm from. I love the mountains, love to hike, so that's where they'll get to have me. But I've really enjoyed my time here, and I asked what a moment of wellness was. I don't know what that is. What does that mean? You want to meditate? And, so it's just more of like just sharing us something, a warm, feel good story. And that's what I was told. Yeah, something to think about. And so right now in the moment of transition, and I'm sure a lot of you have had moments of transition, are probably going through one. For me, it's, realizing that I'm officially, for now at least, done with school for who knows how long, if I even decide to go back. I think a lot of it is, how I think it's a lot of fortune telling. I do a lot of I think a lot about the future. I almost, okay, what's the next move? I treat life as a checklist. And I think that's where, I end up getting into a ball of yarn with all the thoughts that I have, okay, the next 3 years, I'm going to get my license and X, Y, Z, and this is where my life is going to look like. And, life doesn't work like that. And I'm sure everyone can agree on that, especially, the past 2 years, it definitely has changed a lot. And so just, something that, a song that recently, I've heard before, but I haven't heard in a long time. I don't know if you all are familiar with Billy Joel, but Vienna came up, and that was something that spoke to me as, I'm very young, very ambitious, and wanting to, do all the things in a short amount of time, but I'm forgetting that, to live in the present. And so I think something that as I'm still learning, and from a lot of wise people here, it's remember to stay present and kind of enjoy life as you are. And, the only things we can control is our reaction to things sometimes, and that's okay. And so I encourage you all to kind of just stay present and things that come up, and kind of, think of times when you might have overcame those challenges, and, nothing. Again, you have control over your own reactions and your thoughts. And so I think that's something that I've really worked on as a student and as a growing professional in this field. And that's really about it. I think, again, something I'm learning, and I really appreciate everyone I got to meet here over the past 7 months. And I don't really come to these meetings. I usually online, but it's nice to see everyone's faces. And thank you to MCPHD for having me for this past 7 months. You guys are awesome. And everybody online too. You guys are really awesome too. So that's all for my moment of wellness of some sort. So thank you.
Thanks, Crystal. We're going to miss you.
I don't know who that was.
That was Becky. It's me.
Becky. Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting today. So thank you all for attending once again. Our next meeting will be August 22nd. Here again, I believe, at 2:00. So next meeting is going to look a little different. So those of you who are online that want to be in person, we're going to break out into committees next meeting, and we're going to work on action plans going forward. So if you can come in person, it's recommended. If not, we will bring extra laptops and put you into groups, and then actually form the committee with you online. So we'll figure that out as it comes. So bring your thinking caps for next meeting, because like I said, we will be working on those action steps. So any questions, again, you can direct them to Brian or myself. And you guys will be getting an email. For the people here, there is a satisfaction survey. If you could fill that out, that's greatly appreciated. That goes into our our folder that we keep of things that we can improve, things that are recommended by our councils. If you have not signed the sign-in sheet, please do so before you leave. Anything else you can direct to Brian, or the guy in the back has a question. It's Brian. He's running. He don't have scissors though. It's okay.
No, we always tend to have something we